to another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm so glad you've decided to tune in for another fabulous little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports, because believe me when I say it, we've got a lot to cover. The NASCAR Cup Series playoffs begin this weekend in Darlington with the Southern 500, and that comes on the heels of a thrilling race at Daytona that set the field of 16 for the Cup Series playoffs. But then the NASCAR Xfinity Series was also in Daytona this past weekend, but their playoffs do not begin for another couple of weeks. As a result, they're in Portland this weekend. We still trying to figure out who are going to be the top 12 drivers that are going to run for a championship coming up here later on this year. But then IndyCar, as we've already talked about, crowned its champion 2 weeks ago in Portland. Now, after having run a race at Milwaukee, they're getting ready to finish their season up at Nashville Super Speedway for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix. And IndyCar also has a brand new race winner to celebrate as they go into that race. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things to talk about. So before we get started, be sure if you like this show, please do follow me on social media. You can do so by looking up at RPEETERS33. That's RPeters33. That helps me know that you guys enjoy this show, that you like this show, that all that stuff, all that support really means a lot to me. And then be sure to have the WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so that you can get brand new episodes of the Racing Report as soon as they are uploaded. And let's go ahead and get right on into the news. A lot of stuff to talk about. Starting off in Formula One, first and foremost, it is official. The Cadillac F1 team has announced their two drivers for next year's Formula One season. That will be their maiden campaign in Formula One, and their drivers will in fact be Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, who we teased and alluded to many times. It was rumored, heavily rumored, that these two drivers were going to be in the running, if not had already been signed. Now we officially know, as of this week, that they will indeed pilot cars next year for the Cadillac F1 program. Now, something very interesting to discuss in this regard. Obviously, we had a lot of press conferences held after this announcement, and not necessarily a press conference about this, but a press conference elsewhere. There have been some serious rumors, very serious rumors right now, that Colton Herta could potentially be going to Formula 2 next year in an attempt to get super license points so that he could then drive for the Cadillac F1 Pro team in some capacity in the future. Now, here's the thing about that. Usually when you have a rumor that comes around like this and it's not true, it's false, usually there's not, it's not true, and a reporter asks about it, usually a driver, a team owner, or some representative will shoot down that rumor pretty quickly and deny it. In this case, Jenna Fryer of the Associated Press asked Colton Herta at least 4 different times about these rumors, and each time he did not ever deny them. Never once did he deny the rumors and specifically say, no, that's not happening. In fact, he dodged the question. He dodged the question every time it was asked of him, which could indicate that there might be a kernel of truth to that rumor. Very interesting to note. Now, if that were to happen, it would definitely set the IndyCar silly season dominoes all over the place, and it would probably see one of the first American IndyCar stars go to Formula One since Michael Andretti did so back in 1993. Now, obviously, there have been other IndyCar drivers who have gone on to race in Formula One, Juan Pablo Montoya, Sebastian Bourdais, just to name a few, but those were not American drivers. They did come from an American background, and I'm talking about the United States of America here. Obviously, yes, Juan Pablo Montoya is technically South American. I'm not disagreeing with you on that one. But when we're talking about drivers from the United States of America, that would be the first time since Michael Andretti went to McLaren in 1993. So we have to see where this goes. Could we be seeing this weekend Colton Herta's last IndyCar race for at least the foreseeable future, if that is indeed the truth, if he is going to run some Formula 2 races next year? I'll be very curious to see what rumors come out of that, because again, there's still a lot of silly season stuff going on in IndyCar, and this is just about Formula One. Now, again, this is still the Formula One topic section, I promise you, but there are some IndyCar related stories that we need to talk about, and the next one is also that. So Alex Palou, earlier this week, was heavily rumored. There was a serious rumor going around all over the paddock, all over the news media, that Red Bull Racing, the Formula One team, wanted Alex Palou to join Max Verstappen next year. Now, apparently this rumor might have been started by Palou's agent, maybe to drum up some things, but in an interview, again over the weekend, in media availability, I should say, for the Nashville Superspeedway weekend in IndyCar, it appears as though both Chip Ganassi and Alex Palou have shot down those rumors. So that's the difference here between Colton Herta kind of dodging the question, whereas Alex Palou and Chip Ganassi just flat out say, no, that's not going to happen. That's not happening here. What are you guys talking about? No, Palou is committed here. Palou wants to continue. And some of the comments that Palou gave during that interview were kind of telling. I mean, it seems like he knew he had his chance in 2022, obviously, when that whole contract debacle with McLaren went down. He knew that that was probably his best chance. And now he's basically saying, well, hey, I'm too old for Formula One. If I don't go in there and immediately perform, I'm not going to last long, and I don't really like my chances. So basically, Alex Palou is like, hey, look, I almost lost all of this before. He almost lost this race with this deal with Chip Ganassi, probably one of the best teams in IndyCar right now, and has been for a while. And he doesn't want to lose that again. He doesn't want to take any chances or any risks because he knows he could probably win 4 more titles if he wanted to, and he could probably win 3 more Indy 500s while he's at it. What's the point for him to go to F1 at this point? There's really no reason for him because he can accomplish and just about everything that he would like to accomplish in motorsports in his career in IndyCar, and that's what Alex Palou is focused on. So, very different responses when asked about those when it comes to IndyCar drivers going over to Formula One. Definitely, these will be things that we'll need to be watching as the series goes to Nashville. There likely will be a lot more news coming out about all of this silly season dominoes and drama coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So definitely these will be 2 things to watch in the world of IndyCar, especially if you're a Formula One fan. Now let's move on into some actual real, more Formula One news. I promise you it's real Formula One news. McLaren has announced that MasterCard will serve as the team's naming sponsor beginning next season, with the team officially becoming known as the McLaren MasterCard Formula One team beginning in 2026. So everybody but Cadillac will have a naming rights sponsor on the Formula One grid. Now, that could change, but someone mentioned on Twitter, I don't know who, I apologize if I'm mentioning you, but props to whoever theorized that Sergio Perez would bring the Kit Kat sponsorship over to Cadillac, and then they'd become called the Kit Kat Cadillac team. Say that 12 times fast, right? But anyway, that's it for Formula One news so far this week. Could be a lot more things coming out, obviously, with the series coming back this weekend for the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort. Definitely a lot more possibilities for news, but that's, as of the recording of this show, that's some of the newest stuff that's come out of the Formula One paddock. Now let's get into some IndyCar news, because Lord have mercy, do we have a lot to get to. Now this dropped Wednesday, so we record this show every Wednesday, and this dropped literally about an hour or 2 before we were supposed to, I'm recording this. So this is fairly new information as of right now that I'm giving it to you. But according to Nathan Brown of the Indianapolis Star, IndyCar is expected to have a jam-packed month of March, not May, March, that will reportedly include a return to Phoenix Raceway. Now, this will apparently be during the same weekend as NASCAR there. So again, we talked about last week, the trucks going to St. Petersburg with IndyCar. Now, it looks like Fox is negotiating some things and getting IndyCar on the same weekend as NASCAR's weekend in Phoenix. Now, this is a very interesting move because, again, Phoenix and IndyCar have been long-standing partners, like for years prior to the time the series left. The first time, I think, after, I'm going to say 04, the series basically ran there forever. It was either CART or the IRL. It didn't matter. There was at some point an open-wheel series racing at Phoenix Raceway. And also you had USAC Silver Crown cars running around Phoenix Raceway. It was a big kind of deal for, USAC, for open-wheel cars down there in Phoenix. But unfortunately, since 2004, that's kind of been going away. Now, the series did return in 2016, but they left again after 2018 because of dismal crowds. So now, hopefully to prevent dismal crowd sizes, Fox has negotiated something. It seems, I'm assuming this is a Fox negotiation deal. I don't know for sure if it's a Fox negotiation deal, but it would not surprise me, given what they've already done now with the Truck Series, bringing them to the IndyCar weekend in St. Petersburg. I think Fox knows the people want ovals. We want ovals, and we want people to come to ovals. So what do? We give them an incentive to go to an oval by pairing it with a NASCAR race weekend. Now, this is something that, again, crazy. If you had told me that this was a possibility last year, I wouldn't have believed it, because it was very much assumed that NASCAR and IndyCar, after the discontinuation of the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard and the Big Machine Vodka Grand Prix, or whatever the Harvest Grand Prix was called that year, that partnership kind of was done, that these two sides didn't really feel like working together anymore. But now, looks like with Fox having that stake in IndyCar and Fox being such a major television partner for NASCAR, they're pulling some strings and getting us exactly what we've been asking for. More ovals, and not just some other oval that we obviously want, but an oval that has a rich history in American open wheel racing. And I personally am thrilled about this, and I hope that this is true. Very much hope that this is true. But having known Nathan Brown, having worked with him, for a number of years, I have some high hopes that this is very true. Now, here's some more details from that article. Additionally, IndyCar is expected to race at Barber Motorsports Park, at least in late March. Now, that would be the earliest time that IndyCar has ever raced at Barber Motorsports Park. Prior to that, they've raced as early as April 1st, but now they would be actually racing in March. Now, this means this is how the series is tentatively expected to go. You have St. Petersburg on March 1st, then you go to Phoenix around March 7th or 8th. Right now, it's kind of up in the air whether or not the series will race with the Cup Series or if it will race with the Xfinity Series. Not quite sure. Followed by that inaugural Grand Prix of Arlington on March 15th, then taking a week off, and then going to Barber. So, that's what we could be looking at to start the IndyCar season, which would be a huge breakaway from the last couple of years where we've had these long gaps in between the first and second races to start the season. So this is IndyCar's way of kind of fixing that and taking advantage of that these early March dates to get a good solid mix of different tracks in there. And I think that's great, because you'll have two street courses, you'll have an oval and a natural terrain road course. Not too bad, really, to start the season. A decent mix, especially given the fact that Arlington is a new track. We'll see. I'll still be curious to see if that still exists by 2027. I'm still not convinced that this race will stay around a long term. Now, something also included in that article, and again, please be sure to subscribe to the Indianapolis Star to read this. Support your local journalism, folks. But the Indy Star reports that IndyCar is expected to formally announce the return of Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez this weekend at Nashville. Now, that's expected that there will be a formal announcement that the series is going back to Mexico City this weekend at Nashville at some point. I don't know when during that season, but that's when it's expected, according to this article. Now, apparently, it's rumored that that race could slot after the July 26th race at Laguna Seca. So it will probably slot there in that early August time frame, which would be very interesting. Now, obviously, this then also pushes Milwaukee back to August 30th, and then Nashville Superspeedway, which is still expected to end the season to September 6th. So that's you're looking kind of like that to end the season, but again, still no official announcement yet from the IndyCar series on their schedule. Finally, Toronto is expected to race at a quote-unquote defunct airport venue as the city prepares to host World Cup games near Exhibition Place. We reported this, that it was highly expected that Toronto would likely not be able to run. The Toronto Grand Prix would not likely be able to run around Exhibition Place, which means that race organizers are going to have to come up with some sort of alternate location, at least for this week, at least for 2026, I should say. So we'll see what happens there, what kind of courses that's going to look like. But I'll tell you this, I'm kind of excited to see the series come back to an airport runway racetrack. I feel like that was something that was really, really popular in the 90s and 2000s. We had a lot of airport runway tracks, especially obviously Berkeley Lakefront Airport in Cleveland being the classic, but then also going to tracks in Edmonton as well. I think that a lot of that is kind of cool, and I'm kind of looking forward to see what kind of comes out of that. But then finally, here's the other thing. This is not in the IndyStar article, but Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal is now reporting that IndyCar has, quote, explored the idea of a street race in Washington, D.C., but says negotiations are in the early stages and that race may, quote, may not happen. So don't get your hopes up, folks. But apparently this is another attempt by Fox. UFC is having some kind of big event for the 250th birthday of America coming up next summer. And I guess Fox maybe wanted to cash in on that. Again, I don't know how accurate that's going to be. But again, the schedule's not out. It could actually get put together within the next couple of weeks. Because again, IndyCar's not expected to announce their schedule yet. So they'll have completed the entire 2025 season without having announced their 2026 schedule. That's what's currently expected. Now, final piece of IndyCar news here before we take our first break of the show. iRacing is set to release an IndyCar console game in 2026 with the game expected to come to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and the PC platforms via Steam. So this is great news if you're a gamer like myself. I love racing games. I love to play racing games. I love simulator games. I love arcade games. Doesn't matter. You get me in behind the wheel of a race car, you're playing with my controller, I don't care, I'm all in for it. So, and this is great news because it comes on the heels of obviously NASCAR 25. Over the course of the weekend, they revealed their cover art for that game that's coming out later in October. So, a lot to look forward to if you're an IndyCar fan right now. A lot of news coming out, and I'm so excited for it, and I'm looking forward to see what ends up happening as we get closer and closer to that schedule being released, as well as closer and closer to the 2026 IndyCar season. Now we're going to go ahead and take a quick break real quick, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Supercars news because there's a Supercars driver says that he had a deal lined up with a NASCAR team to run some races, but that unfortunately fell through. You'll find out who that driver is after the break, and then we'll also talk about some big news in the world of NASCAR. So do not go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And we're back on The Racing Report. Thanks so much for sticking through us here through the break. Let's go ahead and talk about Supercars news. This is big. I teased it at the beginning, right before we took a break. But current Supercars points leader Brock Feeney has revealed that he had a deal lined up to run the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Portland and the Charlotte Roval, but due to how close the Roval race was to the Bathurst 1000, the plans were ultimately shelved, and also the race that he was expected to run at Portland was also fell through. Obviously, he's not on the entry list for Portland this weekend, so some disappointing news there, but again, more Supercars drivers expressing interest in running NASCAR races. Now, as opposed to going the opposite direction, still no word whether or not Austin Cindric will indeed participate in the Adelaide Grand Final at the end of the season, but I will still be very curious to see if that ends up happening because I hope that it does. I know Cindric really wants to race out there, and it would be kind of nice for NASCAR to send a driver over to Australia instead of NASCAR continuously poaching the Australian drivers from the Australian fans. But hey, that's the Supercars news for this week. Let's go ahead and jump into the world of NASCAR because there's a lot to get to and we've got to run through it, especially in the courts. Now, starting off first, recent court documents say that NASCAR has an agreement with somebody. Nobody knows who this person is or who this entity is, this team, whatever, to acquire one of 2311 or FRM's charters. NASCAR filed a legal notice on Monday saying that it plans to issue the charter to the unknown entity should a district court judge not prevent the agreement, which means that if a judge does not tell NASCAR, no, you can't do this, they have repossessed one of 2311 or FRM's charters and they fully intend to sell it to somebody else. We don't know who that is. Their name was redacted from the court documents, so we don't know who that is. But that is what is happening right now. NASCAR has filed this motion. Now, in response, 2311 has said in a Monday court filing that if it does not receive its charters back, it will suffer irreparable harm, which remember, this was their main argument that losing their charters is going to cause irreparable harm. This is something that NASCAR argued would not happen, but 2311 is obviously definitely arguing this has happened because apparently Tyler Reddick has already informed the team that they are in breach of contract because, again, according to his contract, that team had to have a charter for him. And if they don't have a charter for him, then technically they are in breach of contract. So, as a result of that, they also noticed that sponsors are scaling back their involvement with the team now that they don't have a charter. So, 2311 is arguing that, hey, look, this is what's already happening to our team and to us because of this ruling. And they're begging the judge, please rule in our favor. So, again, trial is still scheduled for December. We still got a couple of months to go until that trial happens. But boy, that is really damning by NASCAR. They've already been in negotiations with some entity to sell one of these charters there. Whew. A lot to digest. But that's not all. That's not the only legal implication, because we've been also talking about this ongoing lawsuit between Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing. Well, apparently also this week, a federal judge has blocked Rick Ware Racing from selling its NASCAR team to TJ Pucher amid the team's ongoing lawsuit. Now, that trial is currently scheduled for January. So, because of that ruling, TJ Pucher cannot purchase Rick Ware Racing. Rick Ware Racing is kind of in a weird limbo kind of area right now. Not really sure where their charters are going to go for next year. They do have, obviously, that deal in place. They're expected to get back the charter that they leased out to RFK Racing so that they could run Ryan Preece this year. They're expected to get that lease back, and then I think that they were supposed to sell or lease another charter, or at least sell one of those charters to Legacy Motor Club or some other team, I think. And a lot of things are going on. A lot of moving parts here with this lawsuit, so definitely something to keep an eye on there. Now, outside of the courtroom, let's talk about some happier NASCAR news. Connor Zilisch will officially move to the NASCAR Cup Series next year with Trackhouse Racing, as team owner Justin Marks says he does not yet know what number Zilisch will run, but he did say that he will have sponsorship from both Red Bull and Trackhouse Racing. So remember, earlier this year, Trackhouse Racing announced Daniel Suarez will not return to the team, and now we know who's replacing him, but we don't know if he's going to drive the 99. He could drive another car number. Who knows? We'll find out. But we do know, at the very least, what his sponsors will be. Now, second big piece of news here, Colleague Racing has officially announced that they will be Ram, their anchor team, the anchor team for Ram trucks when they return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series next season. And the team is currently expected to field 5 Ram trucks in the Truck Series. 5. Now, many people are rightfully so commenting online that, hey, this might not seem like a very good idea for Colleague Racing, given the fact that, boy, they've kind of been struggling in the Xfinity Series and their Cup program. Well, let's just remember that this outing is being heavily subsidized and funded by Ram trucks. So they're really not putting a bunch of money into that like you maybe think that they would. Ram is really just this is their factory program, basically, and they're putting money into that. So the only thing that Colleague Racing's going to have to do is now put up what they called firewalls, basically, between the two teams, their Cup and Xfinity teams and their truck team, because obviously the Cup and Xfinity teams will still be running Chevrolets, and you don't want to do what Bill Davis did last time. If you recall, Bill Davis was using Dodge wind tunnels to help test Toyota trucks and Toyota cars for Toyota's entry into NASCAR in 2004 and then later in 2007. So don't be a Bill Davis. Don't be a Bill Davis. And I think Matt Colleague and Chris Rice are smart enough to probably not do that, but definitely some interesting news there. Now, second to last piece of NASCAR news we got to talk to before we take our second break. NASCAR is apparently reportedly open to allowing Cup drivers to compete in more races in the NASCAR Xfinity and Truck Series in the near future. It's just being kicked around right now. Steve O'Donnell said so in a interview that happened last week. Possibly something to keep an eye on as NASCAR rolls through here into the playoffs and into next year, whether or not maybe you could see more Cup drivers competing in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. Finally, before we move on, Trevor Bayne is going to be back behind the wheel of a NASCAR stock truck this weekend. He's going to race the Truck Series race at Darlington, driving the number 1 Toyota for Tricon Garage with sponsorship from Victory Junction. So that is all for NASCAR news as of this show. But hey, don't go anywhere. We're going to recap all of the races from this past weekend, tell you who, like I said at the beginning of the show, tell you who won that surprise IndyCar race. Who was a surprise winner of the IndyCar race this weekend in Milwaukee? All that's coming up later on here in the Racing Report. So do not go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Racing Report. Let's go ahead and finish up this show talking about the weekend recap. The NASCAR Cup Series was in Daytona this past weekend for the Coke Zero Sugar 400. That race was won by Ryan Blaney in a thrilling 4-wide finish, and that has also set the playoff standings for this next 10-race run. And now we know who's going to be racing that. So let's go ahead and talk real quick about the NASCAR Cup Series playoff grid. Kyle Larson is seated first. He's 26 points above the cut line, followed by William Byron, who is also 26 points above the cut line. Denny Hamlin is third with 23 points above. Ryan Blaney is 20 points above in fourth. Christopher Bell in fifth. Shane Van Gisbergen is seated sixth, 16 points to the good. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott who arguably had one of the most consistent regular seasons, but only one win, he's seated just 7 points above the cut line in seventh, followed by Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, Ross Chastain, and Joey Logano. And below the cut line is in 13th is Josh Berry, followed by Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, and Alex Bowman. Now remember, Reddick and Bowman have not won races this year, and in fact, they both crashed during Saturday night's race, but because no new race winner won, it was someone who had already won this year in Ryan Blaney. No worries. Reddick and Bowman both get into the playoffs. Bowman obviously was, I believe, 10th in points prior to the playoff reset, whereas Tyler Reddick also was up there. Or no, Chris Buescher was 10th in points. I think Bowman was about 9th or something. Either way, Buescher was the odd man out despite being 10th in the pre-playoff points on the regular season point standings. No win means he's out. All three RFK racing cars missing the playoffs. Brad Keselowski, Ryan Preece, and Chris Buescher on the outside looking in. And again, that's another disappointing season for Chris Buescher because you could argue last year and this year he definitely should have been in the playoffs had things gone maybe a little bit differently. It's the win and you're in thing. I know I have my gripes about it. Everybody has their gripes about it. We could spend 20 more minutes on this show talking about it, but unfortunately we don't have that time. So instead, let's go ahead and talk about the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Daytona. Also, Connor Zilisch started the race, obviously still recovering from his broken collarbone, got out of the car at the first caution, and then that car was driven to victory by Parker Kligerman because, of course, it was going to be won by Parker Kligerman. It's the most Parker Kligerman way to win. Remember what happened at Daytona? Remember what happened last year at the Roval? He's not technically in the record books as having won that race. It's Connor Zilisch, even though he ran more of the race than Zilisch did and ended up crossing the line first in the number 88, but NASCAR is still going to recognize Zilisch as the winner. It is what it is, guys. I could go on and on and on about it, but if you really want to listen to that, I do have a podcast you can listen to. You can look up at Robin Roller. That's ROBANDROLLER. Get that wherever you listen to your podcast. We've got our latest update. We've got our latest podcast that's been posted now. You can go ahead and listen to that if you really want to hear my feelings about that. But until then, let's go ahead and talk about the IndyCar race in Milwaukee. An absolute thriller. A packed crowd got treated to one heck of a show. Christian Rasmussen scored his first career IndyCar victory after taking advantage of a late race yellow flag for rain. He was able to come in, get 4 fresh tires, go out there in 7th, and just charge through a field. It was a mixture of lead lap, lap down cars. He was just carving through there, mainly taking the outside line, to putting that car where no one else would put it. He passed Alex Palou, and from there, after he passed Palou, it was gone. He was gone. That was hands down one of the best cars ever. He was thrilled. It was Ed Carpenter's first win as a team owner since Rinus VeeKay won the 2021 IndyCar Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So some great news there for Ed Carpenter Racing, for Christian Rasmussen, for everybody in the IndyCar paddock, and for everybody in NASCAR who says, oh, who's going to tune in to a race where the championship's already won? Well, guess what? Everybody liked that race, and everybody's probably going to like this race weekend at Nashville as well. In fact, I'll be in attendance there, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite. I went last year, love the track, love the atmosphere. Hands down recommended if you can get a chance. Now, let's talk about the races that are this weekend. Formula One returns after its summer break. What month is it? In Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix, so be looking for that. That'll be on ESPN coming up this weekend. Then NASCAR Cup Series and the Truck Series are in Darlington. Cup Series races on Sunday night. Meanwhile, the Xfinity Series is all the way in the Pacific Northwest in Portland for what will be likely their last race there for the foreseeable future, as we found out when the schedule was released for next year last week. NASCAR is not returning to Portland for next year. So this will be the last NASCAR race in Portland for the foreseeable future, but again, it's still expected that that track will host an IndyCar race next year. Meanwhile, speaking of IndyCar, they're in Nashville for the finale. Looking forward to that. Going to bring the Indy Next guys down there as well. Indy Next champion was crowned as well. Dennis Hauger won the championship last weekend at Milwaukee, but we've still got a fun race. We're going to see who's going to win both those races coming up here on Sunday. Then ARCA Sunday night is also going to be in Du Quoin for their second straight or not their second straight, but their second dirt oval, mile-long dirt oval race. Looking forward to that. And then we don't usually talk about drag racing on this show, but I think it's important to note that the NHRA U.S. Nationals are this weekend at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. So if you get a chance to check out that, highly recommend it. It's a great Labor Day tradition right here in the Hoosier State. It's probably one of the biggest, it is the biggest drag racing event in the entire country, and I think it's just a thrilling event. And really, if you want to get more into that, right now on WTHR Plus, you can watch Rich Nye's interview with Tony Stewart ahead of the U.S. National. Tony Stewart's going to talks to Rich Nye about lots of different facets about his new life in drag racing, so that's definitely something you're not going to want to miss. You can check that out right now as soon as we go off the air here on WTHR Plus. So check that out. Be sure to get that. But hey, that's it for this week's episode of the Racing Report. Again, we really appreciate all your support. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure, again, if you like this show, follow me on Twitter. You can do so by looking up at rpeeters33, RPEETERS 33, and make sure to have that WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so that you get every single episode of the Racing Report as soon as it is up and ready to go. So, my name is Rob Peeters. Thank you again so much for watching, and this has been The Racing Report.